Hello everyone, today we're taking a look at the Sub 250 Nanofly 20 with the O4 in it. Pretty much everything has been relaunched with the O4. That's the one we're calling O4 Lite for the most part. The flight controller is a Red Fox A2. It's a 12 amp with Express LRS flight controller, and it has a micro USB connection right there. Can get this with TBS or plug and play. Plug and play would be the version if you wanted to use a DJI remote. If you're wondering which DJI remote works with this, I am now putting a DJI compatibility chart way down in the video description, so you can click on that and to see if the radio you have is compatible with the O4. Comes with 1002 motors that are sub 250 branded, and they are 14,000 kV. On the website, they say 21,000 kV. But here on my motors, they all say 14,000 kV. So I think we have a misprint on the website. It also says Motort. XT30 for a battery connection, and we do have a capacitor here that's on a flexible wire with a piece of heat shrink all over it. That's a 220 microfarad 16 volt capacitor. The battery mount is a 3D print, and it does have a screw right down in the middle, which is got a brass fitting inside the frame so that you can secure this battery mount right to the carbon fiber. Of course, they are using my favorite motor tape. I oftentimes call that Emax tape or motor tape. I like to see the motor wires connected down to the frame. Make sure that they don't get in the prop if one gets loose. So check your motor wire tape before every flight. The camera isn't so much on a screw. It is adjustable. You can move the camera up and down as far as the camera angle goes, but that's not a screw. That's just part of the mount that threads through there. I believe I misstated that in the Whoop version, that was a screw. That's not a screw. It's just a little point that protrudes out through the hole that holds the camera in place. Nearly forgot, but the props are HQ 51mm tri-bladed props. Mine came with this little kit, which has an extra connector that goes from the flight controller to the VTX, some extra rubber mounts, an extra camera mount. I believe that's actually the stock. That's not a camera mount. That's like a lens protector that comes stock with the O4, as well as another antenna and a desiccate in there to keep the... Oh, it's got some screws as well. Couple little motor screws and an Allen key. We also get a set of extra props, in green in this case. We get a super small wiring map for, I couldn't read this, for the flight controller. I can make out these parts out here, but when it starts to get, looking at the silk screening, I would have to put my magnifiers on it. So, but it is in their bag. Comes with kind of a quick start guide on binding, setting the flight modes, installing the propellers. Yeah, it just covers those 3 steps. Look at that. It's got the old Vista in there, or the original air unit. And it does come with 1 sheet of stickers. And it all goes in this box, which it does fit in even with the propellers on. Oh yeah, and a screwdriver comes with that too. It weighs 42.12 grams. I flew it on these different sizes and styles of batteries, which do all fit in the battery tray. With the red label G&B 550 2S battery, it weighs 71.28 grams. With the green label, it weighs 70.78 grams. With the 380, which I really like that battery, but unfortunately the flight times are really short, it weighs just under 65 grams. Carbon fiber is 2mm thick, and motor post to motor post, I am getting 88mm. This will not be a full flight. I know that will be disappointing for most people. I guess it's technically a full flight because I do bring the battery way down and disarm. But I have a crash, and I do want to show those people that maybe haven't experienced when you have a loose battery, what to look for and why, things are operating that way. It also gives you an idea of when things are loose on the quad on how it might respond. So I think that's something that can be useful for people to see. So a couple of things here. We first got to go over our weather specs. I've got 17 25-mile-an-hour winds, and that did seem pretty true during different parts of this flight session, that the gusts would get up to 25 miles an hour. 56 degrees, so pretty nice. This was actually a few days ago. I opted to go with this flight instead of some of my cleaner flights because, one, I think I flew it as you would normally fly it in my space during the first part of the battery, the first 65%. But then we have the bottoming out, the crash, and yeah, I do crash these things for those that maybe casually view the channel every once in a while. I don't resell anything. I give everything away, doing giveaway videos later on after I've had them for a while and I've kind of answered all the questions that have come in. For the most part, I then do giveaway videos. I don't just give them away because someone asked. There's a whole, it's not a big process, but I have a process that I put them available for everyone to get a part of. So something you may have heard is kind of a prop wash issue. Now, you could say several things about that. Maybe it's the prop, maybe it's the size of motor, maybe it's the PID tune, maybe it's the weight. All those things can contribute to the tune, and what we're seeing is prop wash, especially those really quick, short jitters. And you can hear them in the flight audio, which is not part of the DJI O4 system. That comes from a cell phone sitting on the table right next to me. I believe this is an after-work flight too, by the way. I do think I have a polo shirt on. It could be lunchtime, but just looking at the sun, it's got to be fairly late in the day because the sun's fairly low. So I believe this is a work flight. That's one of the strange things about my my keeping records for the weather. I write that down right away, and I don't necessarily mark the time, because the time I've kind of already got based upon me searching for the weather. But anyways, all aside, we will be coming up to that part where I kind of bottom out. But I think the one shortcoming I can say of this is, if you fly it very aggressively, is that we do have that prop wash that doesn't get handled very well when it comes to sharp, hard turns. And you do see them every once in a while in things like power loops and stuff like that you just had. It's got a little bit of that bounciness in it. So that could probably be improved with a little bit of PID tuning. We've got some PID tune wizards out there. But now, we have our crash, so we're gonna flip over, and then we're going to take back off. Thankfully, it's winter time still, and the grass is real short. But you can see that the throttle is now at 0, and I'm still struggling to bring this down. So I don't want to just disarm way up in the air, so I'm trying to do some circles and keep myself over the grassy area, so if it does give out. But the battery is hanging loose, and that causes the flight controller lots of problems, and also makes it very difficult for it to control flight. So you can see, even with the quad kind of freaking out, we had 3 minutes and 12 seconds. Now we've jumped into pretty much a cruisy sample here. Again, we've got fairly high, well, I shouldn't say fairly high winds. There are winds, and this is with Rocksteady on, and this is the onboard flight footage. So the winds are 6 to 10 miles an hour, and again, that seemed pretty true according to my notes on that particular day. 54 degrees, and I'm flying the 550 milliamp G&B. I did like the 380s. I thought it helped a little bit with the 380s on the PID tune, the prop wash that we saw on hard turns, but the flight time was just barely 2 minutes in my more typical flight style. I think you'll probably get 2.5 if you cruise, and you could probably tell from the pool cover, this was back when the snow had just kind of dissipated, because I kind of had to work back into flying more aggressively as the snow all melted away right around this time. So this flight's actually probably close to 10 days to 2 weeks old, because I could cruise pretty reliably that I won't crash and then land in the pool cover, or, we have standing water out in the yard at this point too, and as we go around to the front, you'll be able to see snow piles still out front. So that's all gone now. But I want to give you a sample of cruisy sorts of flight. Like, there are many people who just like to explore, like a bird. You're just out there kind of looking around, and if you're interested, the Rocksteady doesn't do everything that we would need it to do. In many cases, when it comes to micros and O4s, we see in most of these that it's got some jitters. Although I will say something that I didn't test is that this is on 96 kilohertz according to the website. I haven't verified that myself, so I haven't dropped that down to 48 kilohertz to see if that helps with the O4. I really feel like these manufacturers need to test all of these things before they send them out. Whether they send them out to reviewers or not. This was not a prototype, so it's not as though I'm providing them feedback with my findings. This is something they should have seen when they send it out, that if 96 kilohertz causes the issue with the O4, which it can, that switching it to 48 kilohertz would fix the problem. I don't make changes for reviews, new out of box. I presume that most people who would be getting them just the same way, so I want to show them as you would get them. I do make follow-up videos to some things, like I did with the Meteor 75 Pro O4, and I had changed the ESC from 96 to 48 kilohertz, and that did take care of the jello that we were seeing on the inside flight. By the way, the flight time. I didn't report the flight time. Typically, if you're going faster with the 550, you get about 3 minutes and 40 seconds on my full flights. I know I didn't show you one of those, but on the 380, like I said, you get about 1:50 minutes. You probably can get a touch more than that if you really manipulate the voltage warning. If you're flying slower or cruisy exploratory flight, you can get 6 minutes on 550s. This one you'll get 6 minutes. This one you'll get close to 6 minutes. This doesn't quite perform quite as well as this one. I don't want to beat up a broken record, but C ratings don't mean anything when it comes to being able to rank batteries between companies or brands. It only means something when you're comparing within the same battery manufacturer, because they play with these numbers to where they're just not reliable. So don't think that, you know, this is a 180C or a 9180C battery and then compare it to some other brand in the same sort of C rating fashion. That just doesn't work. Okay, so a few things. So I'm not a fan of how this antenna kind of routes out the back. It's really, you know, as you could tell there, it's kind of close to the prop line. So you do want to have it down here. I would say that it would even be a good idea to run a zip tie right through this area to keep the antenna kind of to the bottom of this. Maybe not even zip tie. If you have some of this tape, you know, cut this tape in half or even a third and then wrap it around there to keep the antenna down here. We don't want it getting up into our prop line. Also, sometimes when you plug it in a battery or you connect a battery, it can be problematic to keep your connector. I'll do it here real quick. So you can see kind of natively how this all comes up here, and there's potential that you could hit that. So you kind of have to twist this all down to keep this down below the prop line. That's another thing just to be aware of. But I'm going to unplug this so that we can not be annoyed by the beeping noise there. The battery tray seems to be made for these 550s. That one slides around a little bit. This one's just a touch tighter. The 380 over here will go in. It's probably the tightest of the three. Jeez Louise. Come on, got to get the corner started. There we go. So yeah, the 380 is definitely the tightest, but it does go in there a little bit. Let me grab one of those 550s from Tattoo. I'll show you what it looks like. So the Tattoos are they're heavier, but they do perform better. They don't really fit inside of these. I think if you really spent some time trying to get them, I don't know if I can be able to do this even on camera. There, I think I got it started. So you can get these 550s in there, and they're going to be tight. Part of the warning that I have for you there is if you go to these batteries and you start using them in any 3D printed battery holder and then you drop back to these, it's very likely that these are now going to be a little bit sloppy and you're going to have to use something like some electrical tape to bulk up these on the inside, you know, wrap some tape around, you know, loop it around through. Let me see if I can get this out. Loop it around each one of these to create some bulk in there. So that these batteries then fit, and then when you go back to these batteries, and you take it back out. So these are going to be super tight. This is pretty tight. This fits about normal. This fits slightly loose. Hopefully that makes sense. This canopy, I weighed this in a previous video, is only a gram, which is, or I think 1.1 gram. Maybe if you take the quality control sticker off, it won't be any more than just a gram now. Obviously, I've got some dirt and schmutz in here from my flights, so that's going to affect the weights to the very slightest degree, maybe a tenth at most. One other thing that I haven't covered was these wires that they use there, the plastic coated wires. These are not my favorite wires. I like the silicone coated wires. That won't make a lot of sense to too many people. And also note that how they've cut these wires off here, so they're not connected. It's just the four main wires. The yellow one down here is for S-Bus. So if you order one that's plug and play and it does not have that yellow wire, you know you didn't get one that's for plug and play. So the S-Bus of using your DJI remote with this O4 is not going to work because the wire is missing. But back to my point, these are plastic wires, so if you have to resolder on them, you got to be quick because they melt back, and then you have to trim your wire a little bit so you don't have a lot of metal wire exposed. But I would prefer that they switch to a silicone based wire, which is more typical of what we find. It's flexible. They're less likely when you solder on them to burn back. It takes a lot more heat. Just something that I noticed with Sub 250 and that connector is that it's got the old plastic coating on there. Obviously, to get our O4 activated as well as our recordings off of the board, our USB-C port is right there, exposed, easy. And then as we previously covered, we've got our micro USB down here. Although I think it flies pretty well, I do think there's a viable number of people that would be interested. I would like to see the maybe tuned up just a touch. I oftentimes wonder about running these 1002 or 1003 or these 1000 series motors on props that are bigger than 40 millimeter. It seems like to me that it becomes more and more difficult to get a good PID tune when you have this size motor on a prop over 40 millimeters. I've seen them on 45 millimeters pretty well PID tuned, but larger than that, I've even struggled myself. Way back when they launched these motors, I took a look at them and I struggled to get a decent PID tune when I put a prop on here that was bigger than 45 millimeters. So that might have been one of the struggles they had, but we obviously, you could hear it, you could see it when you're doing the at speed turns, or even when you're doing power loop recoveries or various vertical recoveries. It has a little bit, not always, but it has a tendency to have a little bit of that prop wash warble that we hear in the flight a number of different times. So looking at the price on the Sub 250 website, looks like this for the Express Alerts version comes in at $279. I believe they're selling the O4s for around $110, so that's getting close to half of the total overall cost. I do believe this, if you're interested in Sub 250 products, they do also list those on other websites, like FPV-based shops like Pyrodrone, I think, has them. Maybe even Get FPV, Defiance RC. You could find it at various places. I'll look around, so if you are interested in this, that you will be able to just go down to the video description to look at what I was able to find. Of course, you can always you do your Googling and find it on your own. It is the Sub 250 Nanofly 20 HD O4. I think is the actual name. And they do state on their website they're shipping DHL, when it's, in my experience, is the most reliable, fastest shipping for drone stuff. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comment section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.